This is a Europhile review of Airlines Europe. I'm going to regret turning it sideways because this is absolutely packed full of tiny little components and they're going to fall everywhere. This is one of those games that has to sit sideways on your shelf. This is a game by Alan Moon, who has done many games, but his absolute sort of best known classic is Ticket to Ride. And Airlines Europe feels like a close relation of Ticket to Ride, and in fact it sits very comfortably as a sort of follow-on game, Ticket to Ride being the classic introductory game to our sort of designer board games. Well, if people like Ticket to Ride and they want something which has got a little bit more going on, quite a lot more going on actually, Airlines Europe is a natural successor. Again, we're placing little pieces on the board, this time planes, and building up networks. But there's a bit more going on, but some of the mechanisms will be familiar from Ticket to Ride. It's got that stocks and shares element in it, which I really enjoy. I mean, we're nothing like the weight of your sort of 18xx games. The only 18xx that I can really endure is Poseidon, which is a nice quick one. But 18xx is those really long, heavy train games where you're investing in things and building up networks and investing in those networks. Fantastic games. When I say I can't endure them, it's not because I don't think they're brilliant designs. It's just that I can't sit down for a 7-hour game. Airlines Europe is a really nice, very light sort of. I don't know why 18xx is probably not an accurate comparison, but we've got that same sort of feeling of investing in things and then watching them grow and building up networks, and what I do will affect other players, sometimes in a really positive way, and that's really satisfying when someone's working really hard on their own little strategy and it's also helping me. So Airlines Europe has all of that, just in a really light package. So let's have a little look at how it all works. Here is Airlines Europe set up at the start of the game. First thing I want to show you is the insert. So if I take out my added cases here, you can see this insert is nice. It's a nicely sort of designed insert with lots of different slots, and those slots are for all these different coloured planes. These planes are really cute, just nice little plastic planes. They're all the same, but they're different colours. One downside in the game is that the red ones look very much like the orange ones. You can see quite well actually in this light the difference between the two, but when they're on the board frequently it's hard to tell the two apart. Some you have fewer of than others. The white planes are rarer than some of the others. For example, the blues you've got a load of, white ones not so many, which means those airlines are going to be harder to come by shares in. These represent the different airlines on this sort of track along here and the popularity of those airlines. And then we've got this map of the world, which is where we're going to be placing these planes in order to form little networks between cities. So here from Paris, and I can build out a network to wherever else I want to go. The way that the game is going to work is that each of us is going to be managing a hand of cards, and the cards, probably wouldn't have this many in my hand, but the cards are going to be different colours and they represent the different colours of the planes. So these are the shares that are sort of available to me. They're only going to actually become mine if I place them on the table in front of me and put them into my sort of portfolio. So we'd be placing these shares down in front of us so other players can see which airlines we have shares in. And then every now and then a scoring round will happen and players will be given points based on the shares that they have in the different airlines. So for example, if we had grey up here, and green was here, and maybe orange was a little further along here, and then we had a scoring round, well, everyone who has orange would be looking at this space. Now here it says 5, 3, 2, 1, 0. So the player who has the most orange shares is going to get 5 points. The person who has the second most gets 3 points, 2 points, 1 point. Over here, the player who has the most grey gets 4, the second most grey gets 2, and then 1 and 0. And on this row, we're looking at this. So the player with the most greens gets 3 points, second most greens gets 2, and so on. So this happens whenever there's a scoring round, and there's 3 scoring rounds throughout the game. So how do we actually get these shares in front of us in order to gain the points from these scoring rounds? Because it's points that's going to win us the game. Well, the answer is we have initially a sort of ticket to ride style mechanic over here, whereby we can take cards from this open display or take them off the top of the deck. But in order to do that, we're going to have to first pay some money in order to place planes on the board. So I can place any colour plane on the board, and I can place it in a space. It has to go between the two cities, and it'll have to go on the lowest number on that track. So I could put it here. That would cost me 5 money in order to place it up there, okay, because it says here 5. Okay, so I can't place it on the 6 because it has to go on the lowest value, so I could put a 5 on there. I've now connected these two cities. The other space there is available for somebody else to come in later and place a plane in there to connect up as well. But initially I've now connected that area to that area, and if we carry on round, eventually I'll form a complete network to another city. When I place on here, as well as me paying 5 money, the value of that particular share will also increase by 5. I haven't put the white one on there, so this will also increase by 5. So it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that has become more popular now and worth more points. That's one thing that's slightly interesting about this game. In a lot of games where you're playing with stocks and shares, you're looking to have the most money at the end of the game. In this game, that's not what you're after. You're after the most victory points, and money is purely the currency by which you buy into these airlines and place the planes on the board. So you've got a few different options on your turn. The first option is to place 1 or 2 planes, and which costs you money, and then gain a card. Your second option, this is a bit blurry, isn't it? So maybe I won't show you it like this. The second option is to place cards from your hand. So your hand of cards, you can place some of them on the table in front of you, adding them to your portfolio, and that is going to also give you money, give you some income. Another thing that you can do is swap cards either from your hand or from your portfolio for these special shares called Air Abacus shares. They're worth quite a lot of points later in the game, so you have to keep track on who's got those. Or finally, you can just pass and take 8 money from the bank. So it's very simple rule set actually, but it's just got that little bit of sort of keeping an eye on what shares people have in their portfolios compared to what shares I have in my portfolio, and judging, do I want to be investing in that company? Do I think those particular points are going up, or do I think that no one else is investing in that, so I'll stay away? We also have these little bonus tickets. So for example here, if Stockholm is connected to Athens by a continuous row of green planes, then the green company will increase in value by 7. So it will go up on the track by 7. So that's quite hard to achieve because green is all the way up here, and that's Stockholm all the way up there. So it would have to be connected up with a continuous row coming all the way down to here. So that's going to take some work. But when it happens, green will take a sudden boost up by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then if a scoring round comes round and you have shares in green, you're going to be laughing because you're going to get a lot of points. So that's how the game works. It's not a very detailed rules overview, but hopefully it'll give you some idea. And obviously the board starts to look extremely pretty once you've got a ton of these little cute planes placed all over the place on the board. Things start to look really nice in a similar way to the Ticket to Ride board when it's absolutely full of trains. But this is a very colourful, very bright, very attractive game, and it tends to draw people in. Now, I'm a big fan of this game. I really like it. So I'm going to try and tell you why. And I think I'm going to struggle because I can't quite pin it down what it is about this game that works so well for me. People tend to get drawn to it. People want to play it. Amongst the guys that I play with, it's one that frequently will attract attention and people will want to play. I think that's partly because people relate it to Ticket to Ride. And it's not, I may be overstating the similarities because it is much more, considerably more complex. But it's just got that same feel, that same tactile feel, the same aesthetic sort of quality. It's got the card play mechanic from Ticket to Ride in there, and the network connecting things. So that tends to draw people in, and they see it as a next step, which I think is a perfectly reasonable, valid way to look at it. There's a lot of second guessing your opponents. What cards have they got in their hand? There's a lot of those moments where they'll play a card from their hand and put it into their portfolio, and you think, oh no, I had the majority in that company, and now they've sharing the majority, which is going to reduce my points when that scoring card comes out. The scoring cards are put into the deck at intervals, so they come up in a surprise point, and it can be just the wrong point or just the perfect point. So there's excitement in that as well. Setup time is a bit of a problem here because there's a very convoluted way of mixing those scoring cards into that deck, and it's always tricky, and also that you have to adjust the amount of money that's in the bank depending on the number of players. Setup is a bit of a problem. I mean, not a major problem, and it's all carefully explained in the rules, and there's many other games that are just as bad, but it is fiddly. It would be nice to have a simpler setup system. The insert helps, though. It's nice to have the planes all separated out by colour and stuff like that, ready to go. So that's not a major issue with the game, but it is something to be aware of. I'm not very good at this game. I don't seem to be able to sort of work out the strategies and that sort of thing. I think the strategies are there because other players do very well. One downside that I find in the game, I don't really like the system of scoring. When you score, you gain victory point chips that are then kept secret, so it's hidden. Once you've scored it, it's then hidden. This is very, very fiddly, going through all these chips because we go through each company in turn. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different companies. Each one we're looking at who has the most, the second most, third most, fourth most, even fifth most in some cases. And you're doing that for 10 different airlines, and then giving out the chits, and sometimes you're having to make change, because there's no 10s left, so you're making change with 5s. Oh, it's very fiddly. It goes on and on. That does drive me mad. I would rather play this game with a piece of paper and writing down the scores. Admittedly, then scoring is open, but I don't think it makes a major difference to the game. That's not a killer thing, but it is a pain. I wish they'd found a simpler system for keeping score than those horrible scoring chits. Other than that, there's not much that I can fault it with, really. It's a really, really good medium weight Euro game with loads of decisions to be made, but not enough to induce people to sort of pause and take ages over their turns. You've only got 4 basic options on your turn to understand. It's very quick to explain the rules of the game. The theme is accessible, the whole thing looks great, and I think people want to play it. So that is Alan Moon's Airlines Europe.